I got the notification at 2 a.m., a funding alert, one of those automated emails you get when you back a campaign. And it hits a milestone, except I hadn't backed this campaign. I didn't even know it existed. I didn't know anything about it because no one had told me. Because telling me was the one thing the person behind it could never do. The app was called Nourish Path. And the moment I read the description, dietary restrictions, chronic illness, personalized meal planning, subscription model, my stomach dropped through the floor. Because I had built that, not something like it, not a coincidence, not parallel thinking. That, word for word, feature for feature, the architecture of 2 years of my life, every late night, every rejected pivot, every version I deleted and started over, wrapped in someone else's branding, collecting $40,000 in funding while I slept. And the person who launched it, the person whose name was attached to this campaign, was my best friend of 8 years. You need to understand what I'm about to tell you, every detail, because the proof matters. Maya and I met freshman year of college, 8 years. The kind of friendship where you share passwords, finish each other's sentences, show up at the hospital at midnight without being asked. The kind where you don't explain context anymore. You just talk. She was a bridesmaid at my sister's wedding. My mum called her her other daughter. I have photographs of us on 5 continents. I trusted her the way you only trust someone who has seen you at your worst, and stayed. Not just stayed, showed up. That kind of trust is not a small thing. It is, I now understand the exact thing that makes betrayal this specific kind of devastating. In the spring of 2022, I sat across from her at our usual spot, a small place on Clement Street, the one with the paper cups and no Wi-Fi. And I showed her everything, the sketchbook, the wireframes, the name I'd landed on after 3 months of rejection, NutriPath. I had spent 2 years on this, not casually, obsessively. The market research alone took 6 months. I interviewed over 40 people in chronic illness communities. I read clinical nutrition journals. I mapped every competitor's feature set and found the same gap in all of them. Mainstream meal planning apps don't actually serve people with complex dietary needs. People with Crohn's, celiac, MCAS, severe allergies, multiple overlapping restrictions. They're patching together spreadsheets and Facebook groups and outdated PDFs because nothing on the market actually speaks to them. My app would. That was the whole point. I walked Maya through everything, the target demographic, the clinical partnership angle, the freemium to subscription revenue model, the tagline I had written at 1 a.m. and woken up proud of. Finally, food that works for you. She asked good questions, sharp ones. She always did. That was one of the things I loved about her. I left that coffee shop feeling lighter than I had in months. She had validated the thing I was most afraid to believe, that this was real, that it was worth building. I drove home with the sketchbook on the passenger seat and thought for the first time that I might actually do this, and I should have kept it to myself. But I didn't know that yet. 6 months later, October, I was on a crowdfunding platform doing research on health and wellness campaigns. Nothing to do with my own project, just scanning the landscape the way I did every few weeks. And the algorithm served me something I was not prepared for. Nourish Path, subscription-based meal planning, built specifically for people with dietary restrictions and chronic illness. Freemium model. The tagline in the campaign header read, "Food that finally works for you." Not similar, not inspired by, identical. A single word changed in a tagline I wrote at 1 a.m. in my apartment. I sat there for a long time, long enough that my laptop screen went dark. Long enough that I read the page 4 times to be sure I wasn't misreading it. Long enough that I had to touch the trackpad to bring the screen back, and when it came back, nothing had changed. Then I started documenting. Screenshots of every page, the feature list, the UI mock-up that mapped almost exactly to my wireframes. The dietary category breakdown, celiac, MCAS, vegan, allergy-specific, which was a distinction I had made in my own pitch deck that no one else was making, and then I found something that made it worse. In the campaign FAQ, someone had asked how the founder came up with the concept. Her answer referenced years of personal research and a deep frustration with existing apps. Years. She had a name, a specific branded term for the chronic illness community she was building for. The exact name I had coined. A word I made up, sitting alone in my apartment, written in a voice memo I still have the timestamp for. Here's what she didn't count on. I am meticulous. I keep everything. I didn't call her. I didn't text her. I didn't post anything. I didn't say a single word to a single person. She texted twice that week. Normal things, a meme, a question about weekend plans. I left them unread and I felt nothing except very, very clear. For 30 days, I watched the campaign grow. I watched the backer count climb. I watched her post updates, cheerful, grateful, visionary, performing the role of someone who had built something from nothing. And while she performed, I worked. Week 1, I met with an idea team. We reviewed my documentation, time-stamped emails to myself, voice memos recorded during brainstorm sessions. The original project file with creation date of March 2022, a full 14 months before her campaign went live. The lawyer told me a cease and desist was possible, viable even. I told her I wasn't interested in stopping Maya. I was interested in winning. Week 2, through a mutual contact in the tech community, I met a software developer named Priya. She had built 2 health apps and had walked away from both after co-founder disputes. She understood exactly what I was building. Within 4 days, we had a term sheet. Week 3, we stripped my original concept down to its core and rebuilt it stronger. The clinical partnership angle, something that Maya would we made real. I cold emailed 12 3 responded within 40 prototype, an investor demo deck, and a soft launch plan. Maya's campaign had now raised $42,000. She had 400 early signups and a launch date 6 weeks out. I had a co-founder, 3 clinical partners, and documentation that established prior art going back 2 years. What she stole was a seed. What she didn't know was that I had already grown the tree. We launched on a Thursday. No press release, no paid ads, no influencer seeding. Priya had suggested we seed the launch in chronic illness communities on Reddit, specifically our chronic illness and our celiac disease. I wrote the post myself. It took 40 minutes and 3 drafts. Honest, direct, no marketing language. I explained what the app did and why I built it. I didn't pitch, I just talked. I mentioned that I had Crohn's disease. That part was true. It had always been true. It was the reason this idea existed at all. Because I was the person the gap was meant to hurt, and no one had bothered to close it. The post hit the front page of our chronic illness within 6 hours. By the end of the weekend, we had 3,000 waitlist signups. Maya's total customer count at that point was 400. Within 60 days, we had our first clinical partner co-authoring content. Within 90 days, we had a seed funding meeting. Within 4 months, no nourished path, Maya's nourished path, quietly shut down. No announcement, the campaign page went dark, the Instagram account stopped posting mid-sentence, and then she texted me to apologize for acknowledging me. She asked if I wanted to combine efforts and collaborate on something new. She said she thought we'd make a great team. I responded with 2 sentences. I won't repeat them here, but she never replied. 6 weeks after that text, my app was accepted into a startup accelerator program. I thought about what I would say if someone asked me whether I felt vindicated, whether the karma was satisfied, whether I felt like what I feel is that she took something and built during my worst health, something that I poured into out of desperation and necessity, something that was mine in the deepest possible sense. She used it as a shortcut. She did not believe I would finish it, or she did not care. I'm not sure which of those is worse.